We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph and Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 71a. We'll start with the Rashbam here, which quotes the Gemara from the previous Amid. Amar Rava said in the previous Amid, Hilchasa Nishba V'Gova Mechsa, said the halach is, in a situation of a joint venture, let's say you have somebody who gave money over to somebody else, that person was supposed to invest, and the idea was that they would split the profits. In such a situation, we say that the money that was given over, half of it is being given over as a loan, and half of it is being given over as a pikadon. Now let's say the person who took the money to invest it, he died, and now he has heirs, and the person who gave the money is coming to the Yarshim, he's coming to the heirs, and he says, I want my money back. So Rava is saying the halach is that he's able to take an oath and collect only half of it. As the Rashbam explains, Palga Milva, he can collect the half that's a loan, that he can get back. Avol Palga Pikadon, but the half which was a deposit, Lo Gavi, he cannot claim back, he can't collect it. The Taninan Luhu Liyasme, because we make a claim on behalf of the orphans, and the claim we make is Aviyam Hechser Loch, that their father already returned that money to you. As we said, that kind of a claim can be an effective claim, because by Pikadon, there's another effective claim. There's amigo. They could claim that it was an onus, and so therefore the claim that it was already returned is also accepted. Umishtabin Shvuas Yarshin Upeturin, they take an oath of the Shvuas Yarshim, and then they are patur. That's what Rava said on the previous Amud, is the halacha. And the Gemara then mentioned that Mar Zutra, he said that the halacha is like the Dayane Gola, and the Dayane Gola actually said the exact opposite. They said that the person is allowed to collect everything. And so the Gemara now answers that Mar Zutra responds, Ipcha Masninan Law, that we had it in the reverse, that the Dayane Gola were actually the ones that said, like Rava, that you collect just half. And the Rashbam says, Ipcha Masninan, Dayane Gola Amri Nishba V'Gova Mechsa, Dahainu Nami Karava. The Dayane Gola, they're the ones that say that you take an oath and you collect half, which is exactly like Rava, and in that fashion it is consistent. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Lo es habor, velo es hagas, velo es hashovach, bein charevin, bein yishuvin. A person who sells a field does not include within the sale the bor, which is the pit, or the gas, which is the wine press, or the shovach, which is the dovecote, whether the dovecotes are abandoned or whether they're utilized. All of these items are not included within the sale. V'tzarech likach lo derech divrei Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva says that the seller, even though he retains, let's say, the bor and the gas and the shovach, even though he retains those items, he does need to purchase the rights for a derech, for a path to get to these areas. It's not automatic that he retains for himself the rights to the derech. But the Chachamim say it's not true. He does not need to purchase the rights for a derech. That's automatic. We assume that the seller retains that for himself. Essentially, the machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim is whether the seller is selling generously. According to Rabbi Akiva, he is. That's why he needs to purchase for himself a derech. And according to the Chacham, he's not selling so generously. He automatically retains for himself the rights to the derech as well. And the Mishnah continues, Umod Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva admits, Bizman she'amar lo chutz me'elu. Let's say the seller says, I'm selling you the field with the exception of these items. He didn't need to mention that. The bor was automatically excluded from the sale, but he mentioned chutz except for the bor. He mentioned to exclude the bor, so that's an added language. So then Rabbi Akiva would admit that by adding that language, he's retaining for himself the rights to the derech as well. She'eino tzarech likach lo derech. In that situation, he does not need to buy the rights to the derech, because that's included in that extra language that he did not need to use. And the Mishnah continues, Mecharon la'acher. Now let's say you have a situation where the person is selling, the mocher is selling the bor to somebody else. So in this case, the buyer is not buying the field, but he's buying particularly the bor or the gas or the shovach, etc. In that situation, Rabbi Akiva says, Eino tzarech likach lo derech. Again, Rabbi Akiva is consistent and says that the seller is selling generously, and so therefore the buyer, in this case, who buys the bor, he doesn't need to purchase the rights to a path. It's assumed that that's included within the sale, because again, according to Rabbi Akiva, the seller sells generously. V'chachamim and the chachamim say, tzarech likach lo derech. No, the seller does not sell so generously. He's only selling the bor, and if the buyer wants the rights to the derech, he has to purchase those rights. And the Mishnah continues, when is this true b'mocher? All of this is true when it comes to a sale. Avol b'nosin matana, but when a person is giving a gift, a nosin is kula. All of these items that we're talking about, whether they might be excluded in the case of a sale, when you're giving a gift, it's included that it's assumed rather that you're giving generously, and therefore these items are included. And similarly, the Mishnah continues, ha'achin shecholku. Let's say brothers divide property, zachu b'sada, zachu b'kula. When they acquire the field, let's say one takes one field, the other takes the other field, they get the entire field. All of these items that we're talking might be excluded in a sale are not going to be excluded when the brother takes his field. And the Mishnah continues along the same lines, Hamachzik b'nichsei hager, if somebody makes a chazak in the property of a ger, the idea is that the convert died, he didn't have anyone to inherit him, and so therefore all the property is ownerless, and somebody makes a chazak in that property, again the same idea, hechzik b'sada, when he makes a chazak in the field, hechzik b'kula, he makes a chazak in the entire thing, even things that might be excluded in the case of a sale are not excluded in this situation. And the Mishnah continues, Hamakdish es asada, if somebody is makdish a field, meaning to say he consecrates the field to the Beis HaMikdash, hikdish es kula, so then we say again, the entire field, he's makdish, the entire thing, even things that might have normally been excluded from a regular sale. But the Mishnah says, Rabbi Shimon says, Hamakdish es asada, one who's makdish a field, lo hikdish ella, es hachorav hamurkav, v'es asadan hashikmeh. The only things that he is being makdish, meaning to say, in addition to the field itself, the only things he's being makdish is the chorav hamurkav, which is the carob tree, which is grafted, that's the developed carob tree, and the sadan hashikma, which is the sycamore trunk, the developed sycamore. And the Rashbam explains, Aval benosin matana nosin eskula, by somebody giving a gift, he gives the whole thing, meaning kol hani de amru lo machar, all the things that we mentioned are not sold. Ve'afilu hani de einon bechlal masha besoch, even those that are not included in what's within it. Kegon chorav hamurkav, for example, like the carob tree that's grafted, v'sadan hashikma, and the sycamore trunk, ubor, vegas, v'shovach, and the pit, and the wine press, and the dovecote, all of these are included by a nosein matana v'hachi mukach gabe hektish. This is clear by the case of hektish that the Mishnah discusses. Vu'adin l'chol hanach, it's true by all these cases. V'taima mishum de nosein be'ein yofen nosein. The idea is that when somebody is giving, he's giving with an ayin yofen. That's why all of these things are included. And the Rashbam continues again, hechzik bekula, in the case of the nichsei hager, he gets everything, afilu b'chor v'sadan, even the carob tree, even the sycamore tree, and then hektish eskul, and it's also true by hektish, de be'ein yafem makdish, kamo nosein, the person is doing it generously, like when he's giving a gift. But Rabbi Shimon says, hamakdish es asada, lo hektish klum, a person who's makdish a field is not makdish anything, mikol osan devarim shamarnu, from all of those extra things that we mentioned, gabe mocher de lo mochar, by a seller, if those are not included in the sale, it's not included in the hektish as well. The hamakdish daito kedas mocher, because Rabbi Shimon holds that a person who's makdish, his intention is like the intention of a seller. Shelo hektish elamasha pirish, that he's only being makdish what's actually explained. And the Rashbam continues, ela es chorav hamurkav, but Rabbi Shimon does say that the chorav hamurkav is included in the hektish. The afagav degabe mechiras hasada einan mechur, and even though when it comes to the sale of a field, the chorav hamurkav, the sadan hashikma are not included in the sale, hacham mukdash, and here they will be hektish v'taima mefarsh b'Gemara. The reason will be explained in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, Ma'ishna mecheru, ma'ishna matana, what's the difference between a sale and what's the difference between a gift? And the Rashbam explains, Ma'ishna mecheru, ma'ishna matana, what's the difference between a mecher matana? Nihi nami de nosein be'ein yofen nosein. Granted that we will say that somebody who's giving a gift is going to give generously tfeimi mocher more than a person is selling, and we understand that that is true. But afilu hachi, but nevertheless, zimnin she'eno nosein alamashem afarsh befiv. Sometimes isn't the person only giving what he actually says he's giving? How do we assume that he's giving more? Something that's not included, he's not giving that. Like the things we say in the Mishnah that were not sold, included in the sale, so those things as well should not be included within the gift. Why is it that we assume by matana that these things are included? And the Gemara says, Pirish Yehuda ben Nekusa lifnei Rebbe. Yehuda ben Nekusa explained in front of Rebbe, Zeh Piresh, v'zeh lo Piresh. This person explained, and this person did not explain. And the Gemara says, Hai Zeh Piresh, v'zeh lo Piresh. You're saying over here that this one explained and this one did not explain. Zeh lo Piresh, v'zeh lo Piresh. So in both cases they didn't explain. Nobody included these items. And again, we're saying by a gift they are included, by a sale they're not. So what's going on? And so the Gemara explains, Ela rather Zeh haya lo lefarish. In this case, the person should have explained. V'zeh lo haya lo lefarish. But in the other case, the person did not have a responsibility. He didn't need to explain. And the Rashbam explains, Zeh haya lo lefarish, nosein matana, meaning the person who's giving a gift, kevan derog elitein be'ein yafa, since it's normal to give a gift in a generous fashion, im isa dahai lav be'ein yafa yav, if this person is not giving so generously, and he's not including these items, haya lo lefarish, he should have explained that. Ulashayir, bor, vegas, v'shovach, he should have said that we're leaving off the bor and the gas and the shovach, v'chol hanach demas nisin, and all of the items in the Mishnah. Umidalo shayir hifsid, from the fact that he didn't do that and he didn't explain that he's leaving that off, he loses out. We assume that he's giving generously. But the Rashbam continues, Avol mocher, but somebody who's selling zuzay on suhu, he's selling because he was forced to sell because he needed money. V'lo mocher lamasha pirish, he's only selling that which he explained. V'afilu im yesh sharogel imchor be'ein yafa, even though there are are some who sell generously. Mistama in lomar kain. We don't just assume that that's the case. The yad lokech ala tachtona, the hand of the buyer he's going to have the lower hand. The lo haya lo lefarish. He's not responsible. The seller is not responsible to explain. That's the Rashbam's explanation. Rabbeinu Chananel Pirish, Rabbeinu Chananel explains, Hakona hayol lefarish. What it actually means is, by the case of a sale, the buyer should have explained. Tekevan shanos and damim, since he's paying money, eino misbayish min hamocher. He's not embarrassed from the mocher, so he should have explained. He should have been clear what exactly he's buying. Umidlo hiskik lemocher lefarish lo hakol hifsidin. So therefore, from the fact that the buyer didn't make sure that the seller explained these items, he's going to lose out. He won't get those items. Aval mekabel matana, but a person who's receiving a gift, boshas yesh lo min hanos, and he's embarrassed from the person giving him the gift. V'yein lo lefarish v'lisho lo bor v'gas v'shovach. He's not going to go ahead and say and ask him, am I also getting the bor? Am I also getting the gas? Am I also getting the shovach? Hilka chaled nosen rami lagluya. Therefore, it's the responsibility of the giver to say, v'im lo perish, and if he doesn't say otherwise, kana hakol, then the person who's receiving will get everything. And the Gemara continues, hahu da'amar lahu, there was a person who said to them, he said to some people, havu leila planya, beisa demachzik mea gulfi, give so-and-so this house, which holds 100 barrels. Ashtakach davamachzik mea vesher, and it turned out that the house that he was talking about, it didn't hold 100 barrels, it held 120 barrels. Amar Mar Zutra said, Meya Amar Le, he said 100. Meya Ve'eshin Lo Amar Le, he didn't say 120, so the recipient does not receive the entire house with 120 barrels. Rav Ashi says, Milo Tran, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah, B'med Devar Ma'amur and B'mocher, that when is this true by a seller? Aval Benosin Matana, but somebody who's giving a gift, no sin is cool, and he gives everything, he includes everything in the gift. Alma Man Diyov Matana Ba'ayin Yofe Yoav, you see that a person who gives a gift is giving generously. Hachanami Man Diyov Matana Ba'ayin Yofe Yoav, so to here by the house, the person who's giving the house as a gift is giving generously. We assume even though this house has more than 100 barrels, it has 120 barrels, he's giving the entire house to the recipient. And the Rashbam says, Meya ve'esrim lo amar, like he didn't tell him he was giving him a house with 120 barrels. V'yitol b'bayis hechalok v'chelak vav dahainu chaf chevios yafsid. So the person who's receiving the house is just going to get 5 portions, so to speak, of the house, and the 6th portion, which is the 20 barrels, he's not going to get that. But then the response of the Gemara was, no, ba'ayin yafa yoav, the person is giving generously, kol habayis kuli, he's giving the whole house. V'hayt kamar machzik mea gulfi, when he says it holds 100 barrels, savar haya shelo haya machzik yos, so that's what he thought, that it holds 100 barrels. Well, Hashem chashiva samarkain, he was trying to say it's a nice house, it's a good house, it can hold 100 barrels. To matana gedola kazos nosin lo, he's giving him such a big gift. The fact that it holds a little more, but still, that is what he's giving him. He's giving him the entire house. And the Gemara continues with the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, "Hamakdish es asad hikdish v'chulu." If somebody is makdish a field, he consecrates the entire thing. And the Gemara says, "Amar Ravuna says, Afal gav do Amar Rabbanan." Even though the Rabbanan say, "Hakona shnei ilonos besoch shel chaver." If somebody buys 2 trees within the property of his friend, hareza lo kana karka, he doesn't acquire land together with the trees. He only owns the trees. But nevertheless, machar karka, if a person sells land, v'shayir shnei ilonos lefana, but he leaves for himself 2 of the trees, yesh lo karka, he does get the land that accompanies those trees. He gets the land as well. And even according to Rabbi Akiva, Damar Mocher B'ayin Yafa Mocher, who says that when somebody sells, he sells generously. So maybe we would say that the seller, is not retaining any land, he's only retaining the trees. But Hani Mili Gabe Bor Vidos, when we say that the seller does not retain anything, according to Rabbi Akiva, that's only by a pit and a cistern, the Loka Mekach Shiara, that they don't weaken the land. Avolilanos, but when it comes to the trees, the kamakachshi ba'ara, that they weaken the land. And the Rashbam explains, yesh lo karka, if the seller retains for himself 2 trees, he also retains land for himself, meaning lita acher b'mekomo, that he can plant another one in that place. The be'ein ra macher lo akarka, because he's not selling so generously, he's keeping for himself not only the trees, but the land as well. And the Gemara explained that's true even according to Rabbi Akiva, even though according to Rabbi Akiva, a person sells generously. Hani mili gabi macher sabayis v'shayir bor v'dos, that's when a person sells a house and leaves for himself the pit and the cistern, the lesle shum hezek lelokeach. Those don't cause any damage to the buyer. The halom mekachshi ba'ara, they don't weaken the land. V'hilkach lo chashash l'shayir klimen akarka saviv habor. Therefore, he doesn't consider the fact that he needs to leave for himself some land around the pit. V'lo haderech, he doesn't leave for himself a path. Aval ilonos shemekalkel es hakarka. But when it comes to trees which ruin the earth, they take the nutrients from the land. Shayir min hakarka im ha'ilonos. So he leaves for himself some rights to the land together with the trees. Avlach sovelita b'makomon, even to go ahead and replant if he needs to. Im yazikenu elu, if these ones become old. Mishum delo leimalei lokeach, because he doesn't want the buyer to say to him, Akori Amri loncha k'sheyamos v'yipater mikan. Take your trees away from here when the tree dies and get out of here. He doesn't want the buyer to be able to say that in this particular situation, so he leaves for himself the land as well. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis.